We're pulling up to the structure, 3002 Gilmer Road. It looks like a row of stores, single story. There is a hydrant right back there near the road on the structure side of the road.
102-54, all y'all respond to 3002 Gilmer Road, commercial structure fire.
All right. So we show up and we notice there's a hydrant, the next occupancy over, which is about 100 200 foot lay just to get into the parking lot. And then we come up to a long, narrow building. It appears to have a flat roof. It's got a brick veneer exterior, so we don't really know what the construction type is. Looking to the right, I see trees, so it doesn't look like it has 360-degree access. It's not tall ceilings. It all single floor all the way across. It's multiple occupancies, so a row of stores or businesses. So as we begin our approach, we want to look at the access and egress. It looks like it has one entrance and there's a fence back there, so we have the potential for engines, trucks, or whatever to be able to maybe get congested in here. So we want to think about we want to be thinking about how they're going to stage and position for the most effective operation. So being long, being narrow, being a flat roof, it's commercial, it's daytime. We probably don't have a high rescue profile. We want to make sure people are out. However, we know that with a short ceiling, it's probably got a cock loft, which is a common attic that runs the length of it. And once you get that vertical extension, that's typically where you have the biggest problems in this type of structure. So we want to lean heavily on ventilation. If it is in the cock loft, we'll assign 2 trucks to that job because it's a big job. First truck or someone early off in the response needs to ladder the structure and get eyes on the roof so we can get a roof report. The first company coming in, we're gonna see how big the fire is. Is it one occupancy or is it more occupancies? And we're gonna determine our strategy. The strategy is gonna be, if it's a small fire, a typical interior structure attack. If it's blowing out the windows and we feel like it's burning from front to rear, we see a good amount of smoke coming from the roof line. The total volume of smoke gives us an idea of the total amount of fire and things that are burning. So if it's a big fire, we may end up, especially if there's roof sagging or a hazard of collapse, we may write off a section and call it defensive and go offensive on the exposures to both the left and the right. So that would be a strategy of defensive here, but offensive here and here. And our company should know what that means. The exposure would be on the Bravo and Delta sides of the occupancy. If the initial fire occupancy is somewhere in the middle and not at one end, if it's at one end, obviously we're only going to have exposures to one side. So when the initial fire attack, where we want to send them wherever it is, we also have an awning that runs the entire length of the structure. So that's a potential collapse hazard once fire gets in that cock loft or is rolling out the doors and burning under that. So we want to avoid that area, never stay in there and spray in the window. We can walk past it to get inside and to get out, but we don't want to linger underneath anything that sticks up or anything that sticks out. So depending on the situation, fire attack could be multiple different things. Search, we obviously want to start with the closest to the fire that is tenable by potential victims. And obviously, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, probably about 12 stores, you're likely to have a search team or a search job on both sides initially, and then depending on the amount of smoke, you may go further down. Another good thing about the search team, though, is in addition to looking for victims, they can give you smoke and fire conditions in that occupancy that's adjacent, as well as they could penetrate the cock loft, pull some ceiling, and tell you what kind of smoke, fire conditions, and construction that you have above the ceiling level, especially in the one that's not burning. If those guys are busy flowing water, they can give you a ceiling to roof report. And the ceiling to roof report is whatever the first layer is that you come to, such as drop ceiling or regular ceiling. It's almost never exposed in a row of stores like this. There's always some kind of ceiling there because you've got air conditioning units that are supplying this whole thing. So they can go from that first layer what kind of structure it is. Is it metal? Is it wood? Is it open trusses? Is it solid beams? That gives you a lot of information as to how easily the fire can spread, how fast it can spread, and what can support it. Obviously, wood is going to support the fire. Metal is just going to be a corridor for the smoke. But of course, the heat can cause it to sag and cause deterioration as well. But they're going to give you that report, smoke, fire conditions, and then what's the layer on top of the supporting structures, whether it's wood, plywood, metal decking, Q-decking, whatever it is. So that's 5 pieces of information in a ceiling to roof report that they can give you. And they'll probably do that in at least one occupancy or one, exposure on each side of the actual fire occupancy. So that's pretty good intelligence. And then you got to pick what size of line. So this depth didn't look more than like maybe 50 foot deep. I would use an 1 3/4 line for sure, because it appears to be a compartmented internal configuration, and your line size is determined by the compartments that you're putting out. When you go in the room, it may be an open suite, however, it may be multiple offices within one suite. So no single occupancy within this row of stores is going to be bigger than these dividing walls in front to rear, right? And that's not that big. 1 3/4 will definitely be sufficient to put these out, and especially if you have multiple compartments within there. So I definitely wouldn't pull larger lines, because I wouldn't be agile, mobile, and hostile, work our ways to the rear. And then you're almost always going to have vertical extension and then horizontal fire spread in the cockloft, which means you're going to have to get on a ladder, get up and turn your hose. And the best line for that is a smaller line. So I would love to get a visual of the roof. Maybe here in a second we can get a roof report. We walk around Division Bravo. We can see the depth is definitely no more than 40 or 50 foot. So it's a small occupancy, small office space. Appears to be a flat roof, and we're going to confirm that, but it is definitely long and narrow. All right, as we go up the ladder, pop over the little parapet here. It's about a 18-inch in the front and about almost 3-foot parapet in the rear. So, and it's metal decking all the way down. Hey, hold that for a second while I step over. I'm gonna drop my phone. That's okay. All right, thank you. All right, so you can see that it has a slight slope to the rear like most roofs do. You can also see where the screws are on here. Typically the trusses are going to run from front to rear, which is the shortest distance. That 8 foot out the front is actually an overhang, so the structure is really only from here to here. So it shouldn't be too bad of a vent job. But the roof crew knows that they have metal to deal with, and who knows what they may have underneath this, whether it's metal or wood on the bottom side, and probably insulation in between. That's really up to them. They're going to figure that out when they do their first inspection cut. Okay, we're going to finish our 360. Come around the back side of the building. We have narrowing, but we don't have blocked access, so we won't have to worry about cutting through gates or anything like that. If we look at the back side of this and we see gutters coming down, we know that it's a sloped roof. All the gutters are on the back side here about every 15 foot, so it's definitely sloped to the rear without even getting on the roof. We did do the roof report, but if we hadn't, we could have figured that out just by looking at it. We got some probably some metal lathe and plaster going on the exterior wall. We've got power in the center of Division Charlie, so we can secure a good portion of the utilities from back here. And the rest of this structure seems to be very consistent all the way down the line of a bunch of gutters, a parapet. Again, we don't want to stand, if it's really burning good, we don't want to stand right here underneath the parapet. I wiggled it while I was up there, and it had a decent amount of movement. It's not just going to fall over unless whatever's holding it deteriorates to the point it can't hold it anymore. So a good fire, really good burning cockloft, then we definitely want to say, hey, avoid collapse zones. And that'll be an order that's given and enforced by everyone.